pressure on him in the batter's box.
Here's Thomas Howard. 302 hitter during the regular season. And we're underway. Ball one. Greg Maddux, 19-2, a 1.63 earned run average. The National League earned run average leader 3 consecutive years. There's a called strike. Howard now down on the count, of ball and 2 strikes.
If you're the Reds, you have to make him throw strikes. He does not throw many strikes unless you force him to. We've seen 3 pitches. 2 of these pitches were out of the strike zone. He swung at one, and the only strike was called. Pitch that was a strike was called a strike. And that's what you have to do. You have to lay off of those high pitches up and away. But the problem is, then he comes back with a changeup, and it looks like a fastball.
2-2 pitch. Up high, ball 3. Yesterday, on the day off between games 2 and 3, the Reds were out here working out. The Braves took the day off. Full count pitch. Hit hard, but right at Fred McGriff, who will toss to Maddux for the first out.
That's what Maddux will try to do all night, get a lot of ground balls. He throws the sinker, and he tries to keep it down.
Here's Barry Larkin.
Greg, in my opinion, there are only 2 hitters in the entire Reds lineup that can make adjustments. You know, go according to how the pitcher is pitching you, and this is one of them, Barry Larkin. The other one is Hal Morris. Ron Gant, Sanders, Boone, Santiago, all the other hitters, they have their own way of hitting, and they stay that way, which gives you a weakness to pitch to, and the Atlanta Braves pitching staff has been able to do that consistently so far.
Larkin misses the breaking ball, 0-2.
If you're at home and you have time, just count how many strikes he actually throws to a hitter. See, he's thrown 2 pitches. One was a strike, the other was a ball. He did the same thing to Howard. He will do this the entire night.
Toward third, Chipper Jones, 2 gone.
And that at bat, Barry Larkin got 1 strike. The first pitch he took for a strike. Swung at a curveball low and swung at a sinker that was out of the strike zone. That's how you gauge Greg Maddux. When he is getting you to swing at his pitch, you're really going to be in trouble.
Speaking of in trouble, here is a struggling Ron Gant. 2 out of 9 in the 2 games played in Cincinnati. Call strike 1. Had an outstanding season in 1993 here in Atlanta as a Brave. Then suffered a multiple compound fracture of his right leg in a dirt bike accident. Was let go by the Braves, signed by the Reds.
I have seen an adjustment already by Gant. He actually moved closer to the plate after the first pitch, but Maddux just went farther away.
Breaking ball misses, 2 balls and strike. The same pitch Larkin swung and missed.
Exactly. Well, look, the Reds are under a lot of pressure to get off to a good start, so I think the first inning or so they're going to have to just calm down.
Jones backhands it behind third, and the Reds are gone in order in the top of the first inning. We'll be back for the bottom of the first as the Atlanta Braves come to bat.
It is where the lofty atmosphere.
Leading off and playing center field is Marquise Grissom. Mark Lemke is at second. Chipper Jones at third. Fred McGriff hitting cleanup and playing first base. David Justice in right. Mike Devereaux in left field. Charlie O'Brien behind the plate. Rafael Belliard at shortstop. And the pitcher is Greg Maddux, and they will go up against a guy they've never seen before, in David Wells.
Well, you're right. The Braves have not seen Wells, and Wells is probably the perfect guy for this situation. Good fastball and a good breaking ball, but he's a guy that's not going to, his life's not going to change whether he wins or loses.
Here's the Cincinnati defense.
Yeah, let's take a look at the defense. There you see that Boone and Branson led their respective positions in fielding this year.
Here's Marquise Grissom. 2 for 9 in the league championship series so far. David Wells already trying to do a little psych job on Dana Demuth.
Well, he's basically saying that the rosin bag is wet. We saw how they wet down the entire infield, so maybe the rosin bag was one of the casualties with the water, and he's bringing out the new rosin bag.
David doesn't look like he's very thrilled with that one either. Marquise Grissom. Look at how his on-base percentage has jumped in the postseason.
Well, the Reds have thrown 3 left-handed pitchers in a row, and I think that has helped him.
Breaking ball misses, ball 1.
And the Colorado Rockies did the same thing. They started their series off with a left-hander, so he has been hitting very well against left-handed pitching.
Well, Johnny Bench made mention of it at the top of our program this evening. Jim Bowden, the general manager of the Cincinnati Reds, makes no bones about it. He went out and got David Wells for just such a purpose, to pitch the Atlanta Braves. Foul ball.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. The Braves are supposed to be vulnerable to the left-handed pitcher, but I don't think that's exactly correct. I think the Braves are just a team that responds by hitting with power, and they hit in the clutch. And it really doesn't matter whether it's left-handed pitchers out there or right-handed pitchers.
That's up high. 3 balls and a strike.
I mean, the Braves are not one of the best hitting teams in the league, but they're one of the best producing teams. They hit with a lot of power, and they get a lot of clutch hits down the stretch.
Base hit center field. So Grissom on base yet again for the Braves.
Well, Grissom is a good fastball hitter. This is a fastball middle of the plate in. He lines it up the middle for a base hit past the diving Brett Boone. But again, he handles left-handed pitching very well.
So Grissom is on, and here is Mark Lemke. Lemke just 1 out of 9 in the series so far. Toward third, double play opportunity to second for 1. The relay, double play. Branson to Boone to Morris. 2 out and nobody on. This 1995 League Championship Series game is brought to you by Toyota and their full line of quality cars and trucks. Toyota, I love what you do for me. By Burger King, where you can get your burger's worth. And by the employee owners of Avis. We're into the future, into it now, trying harder than ever. Rookie third baseman Chipper Jones now to the plate with nobody on and 2 out here in the bottom of the first inning. Ball 1.
Chipper has been a key hitter for the Braves, not just in this series, but also against the Rockies. He has not acted like a rookie in these playoffs.
Down the right field line, fair ball. And Jones will hold at first with a single. So Jones improves on a playoff average that was .357 prior to that appearance. He's now 11 for 29.
Well, the pitch is supposed to be in, and actually it looks like it's in. He fights it off down the right field line for a base hit. It's one of the things that makes him a good hitter. He's very strong, and he can fight the balls off inside, and he really handles the ball well that's out over the plate. He's very similar to McGriff. McGriff and here, almost identical type hitters from opposite sides when Chipper is hitting from the right side. But McGriff is the same way. He likes the ball out over the plate. But he's strong enough to fight the ball inside off.
Well, here's the key to the Atlanta power pack, Fred McGriff. Goes after the first pitch, fouls it the other way. 280 hitter on the season, 27 homers and 93 runs batted in.
We saw David Wells use the slide step with Grissom because he's the only stolen base threat that the Braves really have. Now with Jones at first, he really goes back to his natural motion, and that is to kick his leg up and get some momentum and drive behind his pitches.
Jones only had 12 stolen base attempts during the regular season, successful 8 times. 1-1. Center field. Jones going to try for third. The throw. In safely. Braves at first and third with 2 outs.
Well, Jones hesitated rounding second, and it looked like he was going to be out. Now Howard's throw short hops Branson, so he can't really get the tag down as quickly as he wants. See, the ball beats him, but because he short hopped it. Now watch Chipper Jones when he rounds second base. See, he hesitates right there, and then he makes up his mind. And watch him. This front foot goes over the bag. I'm not so sure that he was not out because his front foot actually went over the bag, and he was tagged on his left leg.
Pretty good throw by Thomas Howard. So Braves at the corners with 2 out now for David Justice.
Let's take a look at this slack. Now watch his right leg go over the bag. See, it doesn't touch the bag. Now he tags him right there, and then his left knee hits the bag.
Here's Justice. Inside, ball 1. Justice with a run scored, a run batted in so far against the Reds. Pitch. Foul up the first base line. Johnny Bencher over on the third base side. How did it look to you?
Well, it looked like it was a set play, Greg. It looked like he was just trying to lull Howard into not coming up and throwing. Howard has to be a little bit more aggressive. When he stood late. He's got such long legs, and that front foot kicked up over it, but the knee had gotten there by that time. A good play by Branson, but not in time.
All right, Johnny. 1-1 pitch. Bounced. A good stop by Santiago.
You know, we talked about the Reds and their defense in the Dodgers series and now in this series, and they are a good defensive ball club, but they're good individual defensive players in that they end up picking each other up a lot of times. We've seen Boone make low throws to second, Larkin pick it up. We've seen Branson make bad throws to the plate, and Santiago pick it up. We see here a poor pitch thrown there by Wells with a runner at third, and Santiago picks him up. They are a good team that plays good team defense.
And Wells now runs the count to 3-1 on David Justice. Mike Devereaux would be next. First time the Braves are seeing Wells, but 3 of the 4 hitters he's faced have reached on hits.
You can see that Wells is trying to stay in tight on Justice because he doesn't want him to get his arms extended. And McGriff, he tried to do the same thing. He got behind in the count, threw a fastball out over the plate. McGriff went to left center with it. Now with a 3-2 count, we'll see if he tries to stay inside again.
David Wells went 10-3 with the Tigers before being acquired by Cincinnati and came over with high words of praise from your former manager, Sparky Anderson.
Well, Sparky said if there was one guy that, one game he had to win, he'd choose David Wells to pitch it. So I think that's a high compliment.
Full count pitch. Broken bat up the first base line. Fair ball. Morris makes the play himself, and the Reds escape damage. We've played one complete here at Fulton County Stadium. No score in Atlanta. And Reggie Sanders, Hal Morris, Benito Santiago to the plate. The 4, 5, and 6 hitters hitting a combined 160. in the first 2 games of this series.
And let's take a look and see how Greg Maddux is going to pitch to Reggie Sanders. It's going to stay up and in and low and away.
1-1.
And that's basically the way you try to pitch a lot of hitters. Fastballs up and in, sliders down and away. But a hitter has to lay off the pitch up and in and not chase the slider down and away.
Foul ball. 1-2.
These pitches right in this area is what has been striking Sanders out. Those are the pitches that they've been throwing him. Fastballs in that zone. Middle of the plate in and up. He has been having a lot of problems with it.
A lot of problems indeed. He has struck out 10 times in his last 14 at-bats. One's away.
And this is how a catcher gets himself prepared with each hitter. He goes over and looks at this book on how they want to pitch each hitter, and he takes that out to the behind the plate with him.
Charlie O'Brien doing a little homework. 2-2 pitch. Foul back.
And that was the pitch right there that they have been getting him out with. At least he made contact with this one.
Reggie Sanders an anemic 1 for 9 in this league championship series after hitting .306 during the regular season. 2-2 pitch.
And actually watching Maddux, he does not seem to be as sharp as he normally is. That was supposed to be a fastball down, and he got it up and out over the plate.
Greg's wife, Kathy, sitting in the stands. Again, the 2-2 pitch to Sanders. Breaking ball. Did he stay away from it? He did not. Another strikeout for Sanders. 1 out. And right now, let's check in on the ALCS with Hannah Storm. Hannah.
Well, Greg, Indian starter Charles Nagy struggling early in this game, facing Jay Buhner leading off the 2nd inning, and Buhner with a solo shot. Jay Buhner has killed Indians pitching all season, and this is his 2nd home run of the series. It's 1-0 Mariners, Greg and Joe.
Those Seattle Mariners love to swing the bats, don't
Yes.
they? Here's Hal Morris. Looks at strike 1. Hal Morris, if anybody you figure is going to hit Greg Maddux, it's Morris, a career .405 hitter. Against Morris, 17 for 42.
Actually, Greg, because of he's hit well in his career against Maddux, I thought they may split Gant and Sanders up by putting Morris in between them. I thought they may do that to give Maddux a different look. When you, as a hitter, you can get into a zone. I mean, as a pitcher, you get into a zone when you have 3 right-handed hitters in a row, like they have Larkin, Gant, and Sanders. So you split that up by putting Morris in between Gant and Sanders. I think you offer him a different look.
That one's up high. Let's check in with Johnny Bench. John.
Well, Greg, last year I played golf with Greg Maddux after Morris had such success with him. He went in, watched some different videos, broke it down, said he was going to make some adjustments. Only 1 for 8 this year.
Morris. Grabbed by Belliard. That one looked like a bad tee shot, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, he throws him a fastball in, he jams him, and he hits a little flare towards left field. Excellent play there by Belliard. He timed it perfectly and came down with it. I thought this was going over his head, but little guy had some spring in his legs. I like those little guys that can get up there.
I'll bet you do. 2 up and 2 gone here in the top of the 2nd inning. Here's Benito Santiago. Goes after the first pitch and misses it.
Again, you have to be patient with Maddux. You have to make him throw you strikes. You cannot swing at high strikes, high pitches out of the strike zone, or those change-ups that will be bouncing. You have to zone him in and make him throw you in your zone.
Breaking ball stays off the plate.
The first pitch he chased was a high breaking ball. This breaking ball Maddox actually wants it. You see it breaks rather quickly down, but I think it broke late.
That one misses the outside corner. This year, Santiago 2 out of 3 plate appearances, including a home run, and that's Leo Mazzone, the Atlanta pitching coach. 2-1 pitch, now ball 3.
That's rocking Leo. He rocks the entire ball game.
World must seem very still to him at the end of the day. 3-1. Up high, ball 4. So Santiago is the first Reds base runner of the night with 2 out. Here's Brett Boone.
What you saw from Maddox there, Greg, was he got behind 3-1. He knows Santiago's a free swinger and he can drive the ball out of the ballpark. So he throws him a fastball up and out of the strike zone. If he wants to swing at it, go ahead. If he walks him, so what? It's 2 outs. That's the way Maddox pitches. He's not going to let certain hitters in the lineup beat him.
Ball 1. Boone, 2 out of 7 in the LCS.
Again, Maddox does not seem to be as sharp tonight as on the occasions that I've seen him in the past. He is missing the target by 6 or 8 inches, which for most pitchers is okay. For Maddox, that means he's wild tonight.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, he's almost he's such a perfectionist that missing the zone by 6 inches is not acceptable to him.
Low pitch, popped up, back of first. McGriff on the run, has room, makes the play. Good running catch by Fred McGriff. The Reds strand 1. We go to the last of the second. No score.
Normally does, and it could have been, just first inning jitters, or he may have been overthrowing. But he was throwing in the mid-80s. I think he can get into the high 80s.
Jay Buhner's home run has Seattle on top at Cleveland. Well, they are mad about Maddox in this town, too, and rightly so.
Yeah, how can you help but be? I mean, this guy has been amazing. But again, I mean, he's become a better pitcher since he's been in Atlanta, and I think a lot of that has to do with his pitching coach, Leo Mazzone. He's really helped him as well as the other starters on this staff. I should say the entire pitching staff. See, that ball there appeared to have a little more hop on it. It may not have been any faster, but it had more movement.
Pitches in there, 0-2. Mike Devereaux is the only Atlanta Brave on the whole team with more than 1 career at bat against David Wells. Three pitches, 3 strikes.
And that's a beautiful curveball. If you can throw 2 fastballs and get ahead in a count, it's the same thing that Maddox does. Now, this pitch is not a strike, but because he has 2 strikes on him, he has to go for it. See, that's where you want to throw the curveball, down and out of the strike zone. But with 2 strikes, he has to chase it. Good pitching there by Wells.
Here's Charlie O'Brien. Javi Lopez, the hitting star in the last game that these teams played in Cincinnati, but there's a liner into left field, base hit. Charlie O'Brien, I was about to say, does the catching for Greg Maddox.
Yeah, he's a designated catcher, for Maddox. That was another good pitch by Wells. He jammed him, but he just gets enough of it to get a base hit. See, this ball jams O'Brien, but he hits a little soft liner over the head of Branson that falls in front of Gant for a base hit.
4th hit of the night already for the Atlanta Braves. And here's Rafael Belliard. Base hit left field. O'Brien stops at second.
Well, Belliard, the first ball fastball hitter, belt high and above, normally likes the ball. That pitch is a little below the belt, but he lines it into left field. He's always sitting on the fastball first pitch.
And there is a meeting at the mound in anticipation of the Greg Maddux sacrifice bunt coming up.
Well, most teams obviously have the wheel play where they will wheel and try to get the runner at second, and if that doesn't happen, then they will let the shortstop, the rotation play where the shortstop goes over to third and the third baseman charges. Every team has that in their defensive scheme.
So here's Maddux. O'Brien at second, Belliard at first. No score. Braves already with 5 base hits on the board, still haven't been able to dent the scoreboard. Boris charges from first, Ransom from third, the pitch is fouled back.
Well, if Wells is sure that he's going to bunt, he should try to throw the fastball up in the strike zone, try to get a pop-up. The high fastball is the toughest pitch to bunt, to get down, plus you have to get on top of it.
Bobby Cox was vociferously sending out a signal from the dugout. Maddux has laid down a bunt 6 times successfully. Going to go to second. And the throw, great save by Brett Boone.
That's exactly what I was talking about earlier, Greg. They pick each other up. That was a bad play by Larkin, but Boone picked him up as Larkin picked him up the other day. This is a smart play. They're going right to second base. Normally, the third baseman, when you make him feel the ball, he comes to first base with it. Larkin off balance, no chance to get Maddux, and he still throws the ball. You see, he really had no chance to get Maddux. Just a great diving stop there by Boone. But again, they pick each other up.
Boone saves the run. So Maddux is on at first.
No sacrifice. That's just a fielder's choice.
And O'Brien is at third. First and third, 2 out, and here's Marquise Grissom, who singled in his previous trip to the plate. Off-speed pitch, and he fouled it off. Missed inside, 1-1. David Wells has 10 appearances in the postseason. 9 in relief with Toronto, 19 in the third innings pitched, just 2 earned runs. 21 strikeouts and an ERA of less than 1.
And he has a much better postseason record than Greg Maddux does.
Popped it up on the infield. Barry Larkin back of second. Makes the call and makes the play. And again, the Braves strand a couple. We've played 2, and we're scoreless in Atlanta. On 5 hits.
Well, maybe this is a good sign for the Reds, simply because the Braves are not a real good hitting team normally, but they have 5 base hits already, and they've left runners on. Normally, they just make their hits count better than this, so maybe a good sign for the Reds that maybe this is going to be their night.
What's fascinating about that graphic, it's the first time in some 800 on the first pitch. Ransom bounces towards second, and Lemke makes the play. First time in some 800 postseason games that a team has had 5 or more hits in the first 2 innings and failed to score.
Well, it's very unusual. I mean, to have that many hits and to have the scoring situations that they have had and not be able to produce.
Here's David Wells. Talking to David in the dugout before the game, asked just to pass along his best wishes to his mom, Ann, who is undergoing surgery on Tuesday out in San Diego. So Dave would be happy to do that.
I think a Wells victory would also help her to feel better.
There's a line liner down the left field line. That's a base hit. So the pitcher, David Wells, registers the first base hit of the night for the Cincinnati Reds. 1 on and 1 out here in the top of the third. And with that, we check in on the ALCS with Hannah.
Well, Greg, the Mariners' Randy Johnson is dominating. Here he is in the bottom of the second facing Manny Ramirez, who had 2 home runs in Game 2. And he gets him swinging with a 97-mile-an-hour fastball. Johnson's 18th strikeout of the postseason. Still 1-0 Mariners, Greg.
All right, Hannah, thanks. Top of the order now for the Reds, and Thomas Howard with Wells at first and 1 out. Maddox misses low and in, ball 1. Bounced out to lead off the game. First baseman to the pitcher covering. And Maddox misses 2-0. You know, Marge Schott, the owner of the Cincinnati Reds, has a habit of having the players rub Schott's dog hair all over them. Ball 3.
Good discipline there by Howard.
David Wells. He may go back to that the next time he comes to the plate. Of course, get you a little itchy over on first. 3-0 pitch. And on 4 straight pitches, Thomas Howard is on base. Wells moves down to second, runners at first and second and 1 out. And time now for the Toyota Diamond Dust Fact, where we test Joe Morgan's knowledge. The Washington Senators faced the New York Giants in the 1933 World Series. Named the player managers, both Hall of Famers, who led those teams.
I'm going to wait for you to give me the answer.
Well, I think I know one. On the first pitch, Larkin pops it foul back to first. McGriff makes the catch.
Well, Larkin thought he had a good pitch to hit, but just the fact that Maddox changed his speed so well, he was off balance. He was not able to get to the fastball. Maddox has been throwing a lot of pitches simply because, as I said earlier, he is not as sharp as on most occasions that I have had a chance to see him this year. I mentioned he was missing a little bit, and that shows you right there. He usually doesn't have this many pitches.
And as you said, not many more strikes than balls either.
Exactly.
Ball strike 1 to Brown in the game. Gant now 2 out of 10 against Atlanta pitching. Strike 2 call.
I mentioned earlier that Gant moved closer to the plate. Well, that also opens up the inside for Maddox, and I'm sure that he saw that. Gant moved closer to try to take the outside away from him, and that's fine, but if you take something away, you're also going to have to give up something. You see they're going inside again.
Down in the dirt, and O'Brien makes the block.
And that again shows you that Maddox does not have his good control tonight. That was supposed to be a pitch in, and he didn't even get it to the plate.
You know, it's been the topic of discussion here in Atlanta about why Greg Maddox's postseason numbers aren't as good as his regular season numbers, and Tom Glavine made the point, how can they be?
Well,
because he's been so outstanding during the regular season. High and tight, and that hit him.
yeah, see, again, I knew they were supposed to go inside last pitch, so they did go inside this pitch, and I guess he hits Gant. But see, Gant starts to swing. They check to see if he swung, which he does not. He gets out of the way, but he does get hit on the, I guess he gets hit on the arm there, on the wrist.
Looks like the right wrist or the forearm.
Well, Gant moved closer to the plate, in his previous at bat, so they're trying to pitch him inside, not trying to hit him, but they're trying to pitch him inside, and that ball does get him. There you see the hand that he was hit on. Let me address the point you made about Maddox, too. There's another way of looking at this. You said, how can he be? Well, there's another point to that. In the postseason, you're also facing the best teams in your division, in your league. So they're going to hit you a little better than some of the poorer teams would have mixed in with the best teams. So your earned run average is never going to be as good if you face better competition. And unless you're an overpowering pitcher like Randy Johnson or someone who overpowers the hitters. Maddox finesses the hitters.
Here's Reggie Sanders. Just 1 out of 10. Struck out again his last time up. Now with the bases loaded. Strike call. How does Greg Maddux fare with the bases loaded? He does pretty well. 142 is what the hitters hit against Greg Maddux with the bases loaded. That's over the last 21 years. 0-2.
That is an amazing statistic in that normally with the bases loaded you have a smaller margin for error, so you usually have to give the hitters a better pitch to hit.
Now the Atlanta fans make some noise as they look for the strikeout. 0-2 pitch. 1-2. Reggie Sanders has struck out 11 times in his last 15 at-bats. That's some slump. One-two pitch. Maddox thought he had it.
Well, the pitch was high, but the Reds have been swinging at those high pitches, so Maddox thought he was going to get it. Now watch where this pitch crosses the plate. It's not where he catches it. See how Charlie O'Brien trying to lower his glove there. It's where it crosses the plate. O'Brien thought it was high as well.
Called up the third base line where third base coach Ray Knight makes the play. Greg Maddux has never allowed a regular season grand slam home run, but Will Clark touched him for one back in 1989 in the National League Championship Series.
I remember that at bat well. He got behind Will Clark originally in the at bat, and Will was able to sit on a fastball and took him deep.
What do you look for from Maddux here if you're Reggie Sanders?
Well, you just have to look for the ball now to try to put it in play.
2-2. All that.
And that was a pretty good swing there. He did not overswing. Reggie has been overswinging on a lot of those high fastballs. He looked on that particular pitch like he's trying to put the ball in play. So he's just trying to hit a line drive right there. I like that. And that's what you try to do in this situation. Just put the ball in play. See how he keeps his head on it? He didn't overswing. Nothing happened there. Now Maddox will probably throw him a changeup or something, and he'll be out in front. But this is a better Reggie Sanders at bat than any that we've seen so far in this playoff. He is trying to make contact now with 2 strikes. In the past, he had been swinging hard, still trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. Now he's just trying to make contact, and that's what the Reds' objective should be tonight. Put the ball in play when you have runners in scoring position.
You made mention of this earlier, Joe. Greg Maddux, who in the top of the third with 2 out and the bases loaded, has already thrown 51 pitches.
If you're going to get him, you better get him tonight.
Rick Fowler.
Not to be redundant, but again, a good swing there. A good level swing there by Sanders. Just not overswinging so far. It doesn't mean he's going to get a base hit, but this has to do a lot for his confidence and, of course, his teammates' confidence in him. So this is a good at-bat no matter what happens for Reggie Sanders. It'll help him later in the ball game, even if he does not come through right here.
2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, bases loaded. Got him swinging.
And that's the pitch that they've been getting him out on, so he finally had to go for it.
second time tonight he gets Sanders on strikes. The Reds lead the bases loaded in the third. All right, Hannah, thanks. We go to the bottom of the third. Mark Lemke, Chipper Jones, Fred McGriff to face David Wells. We are scoreless. We've seen an awful lot of runners stranded so far tonight.
By both pitchers. So as many pitches that they're throwing, neither one of them are going to be around at the end.
Wells starts off with a high pitch ball one. Lemke hit into a 5-4-3 double play back in the first inning. 2 balls and no strikes. David Wells, see that bit of a drawing on his bicep. We'll show you again. Ball 3. On his right arm, just under his sleeve, is a tattoo of his son Brandon. Now that's love.
Yes. But I wonder what he's going to do as Brandon gets a little older. And his facial expressions change. There you can see part of the tattoo right there.
3-0 pitch. 3-1. Yeah, or if he has more kids.
Yes.
3-1 pitch to Lemke. Liner caught by Jeff Branson at third.
Nice play. Lemke gets a fastball in. He lines it hard. This is just perfect timing there. And a great stretch by Branson. Watch, he's at the height of his jump. Arm completely stretched out. Just a nice play. Right in the end of the glove. Snow cone there. Nice play.
1 up and 1 gone. Here's Chipper Jones. He singled in the first inning. That's a called strike. In the first, Grissom singled and was erased in a Lemke double play ball. Then Jones and McGriff singled, but Justice grounded out. Hit hard down the left field line and foul. That one had home run distance, but he turned on it.
What a great world we live in. Atlanta Braves fan and a Cincinnati Reds fan can share box seats together.
They'll be at each other's throats by the 7th inning. Chipper Jones, prime candidate for National League Rookie of the Year honor. Off a .265 average, 23 homers, 86 runs batted in. 1-2 pitch. Bounce it. Jones had 23 homers. Ryan Klesko had 23. Justice 24. McGriff 27. The last time the Braves team had 4 players with 20-plus home runs was in 1973. Dusty Baker had 21. Hank Aaron had 40. Darrell Evans 41. Davey Johnson has 43. Full count now. Pretty good home run hitting second baseman.
Yes, he was. He was a good hitter and a good defensive second baseman. Davey Johnson was a good player.
Full count pitch to Chipper Jones. Off speed, deep short. Larkin can't come up with it. Jones makes the turn and will hold. And it's a base hit.
We talked about both teams making adjustments when they get back here on dirt as compared to AstroTurf. And you can see, I guarantee on AstroTurf, Larkin makes a play on that ball. But on natural turf, the ball bounces differently, and you do not always get a true hop.
Fred McGriff steps in. McGriff singled back in the first inning. Off speed, ball 1. Johnny Bench was was talking earlier with some of the players about the condition of that infield. John?
Well, Greg, Hal Morris and Mark Lemke both said that this infield was really, really fast. Only last week and a half ago when Opal came through, it took away the top layer. So it took off some of the slowness and the consistency. Plus the wet grass makes this ball shoot through the infield.
As it did on Barry Larkin. One on, one out. And a 1-0 count to McGriff. High in the air, short center field. Larkin gets the catch for out number 2, and we go back to our Diamond Dust quiz. One of the guys I wanted to say, without looking at the answer so far, is Bill Terry. Washington Senators and New York Giants in the 33 World Series. The player managers, both Hall of Famers. How about that?
You're a half, right?
Joe Cronin and Bill Terry. As opposed to being all the way wrong.
Like I was.
2 out now with a runner at first, and here's David Justice. We mentioned earlier about the difficulties of being down 0-2 in a series. Davey Johnson's 86 Mets were down to the Boston Red Sox. There goes the runner. Santiago comes up throwing too late.
If you are the Cincinnati Reds, you can't take anything for granted in this ballgame. Wells never checked Chipper Jones. He just took off on Wells' first movement. Wells used the slide step when Grissom was there. So he takes off on his first movement. He didn't even try to read him. He knew Wells wasn't coming over there. You cannot take anything for granted. You have to make sure that you check the runners.
So now Justice with a teammate in scoring position and 2 out. It's a called strike. In these situations, 2 outs and the runners on. The Braves in this postseason are hitting .340.
And that's why they beat the Rockies, and that's why they're up 2-0 on the Cincinnati Reds. Good pitch.
Ball. 1-2.
When you see Santiago showing off his arm, he can throw from a sitting position to second base, which he does on this occasion, but he does not get Chipper Jones.
One and 2 the count to David Justice. Chipper Jones at second with 2 out. We are in the bottom of the 3rd in a scoreless game. He bounced that one.
Good stop there by Santiago.
David Justice at .253 during the regular season, but had a .302 average here in Fulton County Stadium. Hit just .212 away from Atlanta. Line down the right field line, foul.
It's another good pitch by Wells. If he throws the ball there, Justice is not going to be able to do anything with it. He's either going to pull it foul or he's going to get jammed. It's a perfect pitch. Look where this fastball in, right in under the hands. Nothing he can do. See how he brings his hands in to pull it. And when you do that, you're going to hook the ball foul. Or if you drag them through, you're going to get jammed. So a good pitch there by Wells.
Wells has not had an easy inning so far tonight. Here's a 2-2 to Justice. Now on low, and the count is full.
Interesting that most people think that you pitch left-handers against the Braves, but if you look at Fred McGriff and you look at David Justice, they handle left-handed pitching well. So that's kind of a misnomer, even though you figure you're better off against them with left-handed pitching because they do not hit for as much power. They may hit for a good average, but do not hit for as much power against left-handed pitching.
Breaking ball, no, throw down to second. Jones is back. So Justice is on with the base on balls. And the Braves have had at least 2 base runners in each of the 3 innings.
If you contrast this ball game to the first 2 ball games, and you see that the pitchers are not nearly as sharp, even Maddox, as they were in the first 2 ball games. Shurik, of course, and Glavine were on top of their game. Smiley and Smoltz pitched very well, too. These two pitchers are basically struggling because they do not have their good stuff, nor do they have their good control.
You saw Cincinnati pitching coach Don Gullett in the dugout. Here's Mike Devereaux. He struck out to start the second inning. Jones at second, Justice at first. Strike ball. I asked David Wells before the game, do you believe in team slumps? And he said, heck yeah, we're in one. High in the air to left field. Ron Gant makes the call. And again, the Braves strand runners, and we'll come back to Atlanta after this from your local station.
Joe?
All right, Hannah, thank you. It's too bad that guy Lofton can't run, huh, Joe? Top of the fourth inning, Hal Morris with a 1-1 count on him now. It'll be Morris, Santiago, and Brett Boone to face Greg Maddux.
It was interesting, John said that he talked to Maddux about pitching to Morris. And remember, he's changed the last at bat. He went in hard several times, and he starts him off with a slider in here, which means that he's going to pitch him in with hard stuff and away with soft stuff. See, there's the changeup away. He went in hard and away with a changeup. What it really says is that Maddux is really going to concentrate a little harder on trying to pitch to Morris than he probably had in the past. Back inside. See, he's going to go in with hard and away with soft. That's what he's trying to do.
3 balls and a strike now to Hal Morris. Hi, guy. Towards second. Lemke. First out of the inning. We were talking about Greg Maddux and his postseason. Minimum 34 innings pitched. Sandy Koufax with a 0.95 earned run average. Look at Greg Maddux.
Well, the first one doesn't surprise me. Koufax doesn't surprise me. The Maddux one does. 6.62 earned run average before tonight's ball game. That's amazing. You know, a guy like him. Like I said, Koufax doesn't surprise me.
On the first pitch, chopped down to Chipper Jones at third. Santiago is out at first. 2 gone here in the fourth. And this 1995 League Championship Series game is brought to you by Chevrolet. The cars and trucks 36 million people depend on every day. Genuine Chevrolet. By Smooth Busch Beer and easy drinking Busch Light. And by United Artists Golden Eye. Bond is back this November.
One thing the Reds have to be aware of, though, Greg, we talked about the fact Maddux is not, on top of his game tonight. But if you let him stay in the ball game, continue to get you out, even though he doesn't have his good stuff, he will find his rhythm, and then you will be in trouble. And if he finds his rhythm out there, all of a sudden you'll see him throwing strike after strike after strike, and then you're going to be in trouble.
Well, the warning signs are already there for the Cincinnati Reds, who are approaching 25 innings now in this league championship series and have managed just 3 runs. And that's abominable for a team that hits so well during the regular season.
And a team that is so well balanced. I mean, they have speed, they have power, and they have good hitters. They just have not been able to produce.
Boone follows it back. 0-2. She respectfully disagrees, Joe.
I think you're supposed to do that when the Braves are at bat.
0-2 pitch. 1-2. And despite the fact that Maddux doesn't have his good stuff, he's certainly the kind of pitcher Bobby Cox will go with a lot longer.
And he can definitely struggle and still get you out.
There's a liner into center field. Base hit, and it gets past Marquise Grissom. Around second, on his way to third. Ray Knight is going to wave him on. No, he's going to hold him up. Halfway down the line, and he goes back to third where no one is covering.
coaching. He was going to send him, and then he saw Boone running out of gas, and he decided to slow him down, and that's what Ray's yelling at him. He was going to send him with 2 outs and the pitcher coming up. You try to send him. Grissom just makes a bad mistake here. If you can't catch the ball with 2 outs and the pitcher coming up, you do not let that happen. Now watch him run out of gas right there. You see him start to slow down, and finally Ray Knight says, no, he can't make it, so he sends him back. But he wanted him to go as far as he could until he made up his mind. So good base running by Boone and good coaching there by Ray Knight.
Call it a single and a 2-base error on the center fielder Grissom. And here's Jeff Branson with the go-ahead run at third and 2 out here in the 4th inning. Right back to Maddox. And he's out of the inning. We've played 3.5 scoreless innings here at Fulton County Stadium.
In 19...
Grissom thought he could make the play here. Now watch, it bounces right in front of him. He almost gets there, bounces past him. Now it's just a sprint for Brett Boone as he stumbles rounding first base right there. Threw him off stride. Now he gains his stride, but he ran the bases pretty well after that. It was just a tough call, and I think Ray Knight probably made the correct call.
And you don't believe that Grissom should have been charged with an error?
No, I mean, he tried to make a catch. I mean, if you run into the right center field, the ball goes off your glove. They don't give you an error, a single and an error. The ball, he tried to catch it. It short hopped him, went past him. That should be a triple.
Johnny Bench downstairs. What about the outfield grass?
Well, the outfield grass with all the rain makes it kind of soft when that ball is kind of like a golf ball with spin, and it bounced sideways away from his glove, even though he had it. Joe, there's no question in my mind with you. That's a triple all the way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you give a guy an error. He tried to make the play, and as you said, John said, the grass is soft. It bounced away from him. I know we're 2 players talking here. You know, we're not scorekeepers, but we've seen a lot of scoring done, correctly and incorrectly.
You know I never argue with you on the air.
But you're right. And thank you for that.
Charlie O'Brien fouls it back. The count is 0-2. Fans of all ages, welcome to Atlanta.
This is what baseball is all about, really, for the family, for the young kids.
Here's the 0-2 to O'Brien. Down low, a ball and 2 strikes. O'Brien singled back in the 2nd inning. The Braves have stranded 2 runners in the 1st, 2 in the 2nd, 2 more in the 3rd.
Again, this is quite a contrast from the first 2 ball games.
New about the fact that the Reds offense still hasn't been able to generate anything. David Wells now 54 pitches on the night. A double steal, a pinch hit, an infield single. The 3 ways that the Reds have scored runs in this series so far. O'Brien, did he hold up? He did not.
Good call. He definitely went too far on that.
2nd strikeout of the night for Wells.
Well, you get a look at it, but watch the barrel of his bat. See, it went too far, and then he pulled it back.
Here's Rafael Belliard playing short in place of Jeff Blauser, who in a collision the other night, Bobby Cox says, suffering some bleeding inside his thigh.
It's been a rough year for Blauser.
Speed breaking ball for a strike.
He has not swung the bat well the entire year, and he also had a couple of injuries. Most notably his knee swelling up. He had a problem with his knee, which caused him to miss quite a few games.
In August and September. Foul back. 0-2. Mariners leading the Indians. Charlie Nagy getting a bit of steam going. David Wells is at the bottom of the order here. It looks like he's in better command of his pitches this inning, Joe.
Well, he needs to find his rhythm as well.
Fly ball left field. Gant drifting back. 2 gone. Here's pitcher Greg Maddux. Maddox 11 for 72 at the plate during the regular season. Wells looking to retire the Braves for the first time in order in this game. Pop foul near the first base dugout. Morris has a play and makes the catch. So the Braves go in order. We've played for the Reds in Atlanta. Scoreless here at Fulton County Stadium. Greg Maddux getting his last warm-up in as we go to the top of the 5th inning. David Wells, Thomas Howard, and Barry Larkin. Wells with a word or two with owner Marge Schott. Last time up, rubbed a little Shotzi hair on himself, and then got a base hit. Do you teach that in the minors, Joe?
I'm sure it's something new here in the big leagues. They're trying. Obviously, it hasn't been working the first couple of games.
Wells with a base hit back in the 3rd inning, swings on the first pitch, pops it into short left field. Belliard out, Devereaux in, and Devereaux with the catch. While we have a moment, let's tell you about Sunday. NBC Sports presents more exciting NFL action beginning at 12:30 Eastern Time with the NFL on NBC. Many thought Bill Parcells and the New England Patriots would be the toast of the AFC. And some even thought they were Super Bowl contenders, but pretty much in disarray up in New England now. Tune in Sunday at 12:30 Eastern Time for a special inside look. Patriot problems, broken dreams. The NFL on NBC Sunday. One up and one gone, and here's the top of the order, Thomas Howard. A bounce out and a walk in his 2 trips to the plate, and Maddox starts him out for the called strike. As this game moves along, Joe, you may be right. The Reds may rue the fact that they allowed Maddox to get off the hook. That one caught by Chipper Jones.
Good pitchers have a way of getting their rhythm as the game goes along. They can wiggle out of a couple of jams. They usually get their rhythm. Nice play here by Chipper. He gets over in time. That's the key to the play. He gets there quick enough so that he can slow down and wait. Nice play. A lot of guys try to time this play. He gets there quick enough that he can make the play.
Davey Johnson covers up. So here's Barry Larkin. Larkin 0 for 2. Right call. Maddox has only allowed 2 hits, a single to David Wells in the 3rd, a base hit to Brett Boone in the 4th. Walked 2 and hit a batter. There's a base hit to left field. So Larkin with the 3rd Cincinnati hit. And here comes Ron Gant.
I will see if Larkin will test O'Brien and Maddox. Again, in a tie ball game, you need to put some pressure on Maddox. And even if he's thrown out, you have Gant, Sanders, and Morris coming up next inning. So I think you have to pick a pitch and try to steal second base.
You talked about the Reds wanting to be more aggressive, and what this would also do would maybe throw off Maddox in his rhythm a little bit. The called strike. And maybe get Ron Gant a fastball or 2 that he can count on.
Well, he just got him a fastball right there, but Gant took it, and Larkin was not running. Maddox has not held runners real well this year.
There he goes, pitch out, and now he's caught halfway down. Larkin caught between 1st and 2nd. McGriff brings him back towards 2nd, and the tag is made. The pitch out caught Barry Larkin on the run, and the Reds are retired here in the top of the 5th. We'll go to the last of the 5th inning, and no score.
Well, let's take a look here. Look at Charlie O'Brien. He's looking at Gant to make sure he's not reading the signs. He gives a pitch out. He's still looking to make sure he didn't detect it. Usually a pitcher will give it away. Maddox uses his normal rhythm, which sells it very well, and that's what got Larkin caught out there. if a pitcher goes too quickly to the plate, he gives away the pitch out, but he did not, and they finally run Larkin down.
So Larkin is out to end the top of the 5th inning.
Well, that was good thinking on the part of the Braves. They outsmarted the Reds in that situation. And look at this. I mean, the Braves in the National League, look at that. I mean, the 3rd worst in the major leagues and 2nd worst in the National League.
Bottom of the 5th inning, top of the Atlanta order. Marquise Grissom hard right at Larkin. 1 out.
Another illustration of how tough this infield is. You could see Larkin fighting that ball. He got down real low to make sure the ball didn't get through him. Watch how low he gets. See how he gets way down to stay down. And the ball did take a little funny hop there, but he was down so low he could read it.
Here's Mark Lemke. Lemke bounced into a double play in the 1st inning, and then was robbed of a hit on a fine leaping grab by Jeff Branson in the 3rd. This one he hits to center field. And Thomas Howard pulls it in for the 2nd out of the inning.
Interesting for David Wells. 2 pitches, 2 outs. And he needs to start watching his pitch count as well. So the Braves have done him a favor so far in this inning.
And the last thing you want Chipper Jones to do here is swing at the first pitch.
Exactly. But if you're Wells, you try to make sure you throw another strike. You just don't throw it in the, don't groove it, but you try to make sure you throw another strike. So if he takes it, at least you're out in front of the count.
Jones is 2 for 2 tonight. And looks at the ball.
He was taking all the way.
Can I manage, Joe?
Yes, you can.
Well, I can get the take sign anyway.
I don't want to say that's what a lot of managers do, but
2-0.
There's Bobby Cox. He's been around a long time. One of the better managers in Major League Baseball. The only thing missing, the only thing missing from his mantelpiece is the World Championship trophy. He's been in the World Series, but he has not been able to win.
2-0 pitch hit hard to right field. Reggie Sanders is there. And a 2nd consecutive 1-2-3 inning for David Wells. 5 complete here in Atlanta. You're scoreless.
In Atlanta in the 6th inning, and Ron Gant hitting. It's David Wells, who finally had an easy inning. He's always coming in to talk to Don Gullett. He's trying to stay back. He's trying to get on top of it. Sometimes he overstrides, coasts out, gets the ball up in the strike zone. Finally an easy inning, Greg and Joe.
All right, John, thank you. Ron Gant, Reggie Sanders, Hal Morris trying to break through against Greg Maddux here in the 6th inning. Gant hit by a pitch to load the bases back in the 3rd inning, but Sanders struck out to end the inning. Chopped. Chipper Jones. 1 out. Reggie Sanders 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts. And here's the last time to the plate.
Well, he chased the fastball up and out of the strike zone, and that's what he's been doing the entire series. We talked about that's the way they're pitching him. And finally, after a good battle from Sanders, Maddux finally got the fastball up and out of the strike zone.
Ball 1. And Reggie Sanders with those 2 strikeouts tonight, now 12 strikeouts in his last 16 at bats. Well, if Reggie's feeling any of the pressure, he sure didn't show it before the game. He was his usual jovial, smiling, laughing self. He just isn't getting the bat on the ball. 2 more.
One of the things you have to be able to do is laugh at yourself in this game, because baseball has a way of just humiliating you on occasion. So you have to be able to laugh at yourself and keep going.
Oh, well, did Johnny Bench laugh at himself?
Yeah, I've seen Johnny laugh at himself on occasion. I've seen him get a little upset too, but normally you have to laugh at yourself and keep going.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Cincinnati cleanup hitter Reggie Sanders. Got him again. 3 trips to the plate, 3 strikeouts by Sanders. We check in with Hannah Storm.
Well, Greg, Indian starter Charles Nagy settling down nicely as he strikes out the side in the 6th. This is final strikeout of the inning. Gets Tino Martinez. Also struck out Ken Griffey Jr. and Edgar Martinez, as the Martinezes are 0 for 19 in the ALCS. Still, they lead 2-1, Greg.
All right, Hannah, thanks. 2 up and 2 gone here in the Cincinnati 6th. Here's Hal Morris. Lined out to short, grounded out to second. And lines this one to left field. Mike Devereaux is there. And a 1-2-3 inning for Greg Maddux, as Maddux found his groove. Are the Reds a little too late to do that? To the 6th inning, and we remind you this 1995 League Championship Series game is brought to you by Texaco Avalon Formula 3 Motor Oil, by Nike, who encourages you to participate in the lives of America's youth, and by the makers of Advil. Last of the 6th inning, Fred McGriff, David Justice, Mike Devereaux will face David Wells. Atlanta, no runs, 6 hits and an error. The Reds, no runs, 3 hits. And there's a liner down the right field line, fair ball. Into the corner, Reggie Sanders. McGriff on his way to second. Throw will not get him, and it's a 2-base hit.
McGriff is a very smart hitter as well as a good hitter. First time up, the ball was away, went the other way. Now he's sitting on a fastball he can turn on. He turns on it and rips it down into the corner. He was sitting right there, dead red, sitting on a fastball, middle of the plate in, and he rips it for a double. I mean, he is a smart hitter.
On Wednesday in Cincinnati, McGriff was 3 for 4 with an LCS record 3 two-base hits. He registers 1 now.
Swinging back very well.
Here's David Justice, 0 for 1 with a walk. Curveball doesn't get over the plate, ball 1. If you think about moving him along?
Well, I would, but I think what they're looking at here is they're up 2-0 in the series. If they're down 0-2, I don't think there would be any doubt. But they figure Justice can pull the ball, so they're going to let him try to drive McGriff in by pulling the ball to the right side.
Here's a strike. Also, Justice doesn't lay down the sacrifice bunt. He hasn't done it all year long.
He practices it every day, though. When you take batting practice, you bunt the first 2 pitches, and then you start to swing.
Well, you can't swing unless you bunt.
Exactly. That's the way it works.
Here's Bobby Cox in the Atlanta dugout. He says if the Braves win tonight, Steve Avery will be his Game 4 starter here tomorrow. If they should lose tonight, then he'll go with Game 1 starter Tom Glavine. In the air, short right field. Sanders with the catch. McGriff will hold.
And that's the same pitch we talked about last time up when he got Justice out. If you drag the bat through the zone, you're going to get jammed. And if you get the barrel out front, you're going to pull it foul. This is perfect pitching. Watch where this pitch ends. Right on the inside corner. Right there. Nothing Justice could do with that pitch. And Justice upset with himself because he's probably saying, I should have looked for that ball in there and turned on it. Good pitching there by Wells.
You know, and despite the fact that the Reds are down 2-0 in this series, this still remains an incredibly well-contested series. We're coming up on 27 innings played in this LCS, and the score's been within 2 runs at every moment of every game except for the 10th inning in Game 2 when Javi Lopez's home run gave the Braves a 4-run lead.
That's why if you're a Reds fan or you're on the Cincinnati Reds, you say, hey, we could be up 2-0 instead of down 0-2. So we're still in this 7-game series.
Mike Devereaux 0 for 2. Ball 1. Wells has 2 strikeouts tonight. Devereaux was 1 back in the 2nd inning. The other is the man on deck, Charlie O'Brien.
if you're the Reds in this situation, Devereaux's the hitter, you do not give in here at 2-0. You do not just say, here's a fastball, hit it. If you walk him, it may not be the worst thing in the world. You have O'Brien and then Belliard to follow. So it may not be the worst thing if you walk him in this situation.
Mark Devereaux with the team-winning hit in Game 1. He came with a fastball on the outside corner.
But that's a good pitch. You go away with it.
Let's take you back to Game 1. There's Mike Devereaux against Mike Jackson, and the base hit to center field. Got the eventual winning run across. In the 11th inning, the Braves won it 2-1. And misses inside, and the count is now 3 balls and a strike.
There's Don Gullett, the pitching coach, and he's trying to figure out exactly what they were doing on that pitch. I don't think that's the pitch he wanted him to throw.
McGriff led this inning with a double. Dave Justice fly to right. 3-1 pitch to Devereaux. Ball 4.
Yeah, I think that is what Gullett wanted them to do. Try to get him to chase a pitch off the plate away, not come inside. You see, he doesn't seem to be as unhappy now as he was about the pitch before.
So Wells and Santiago talk things over with Hal Morris at first base. Let's go downstairs to Johnny Bench. John.
Well, I'm agreeing with both of you. I think he just wanted to pitch around him, not give him anything to hit. Devereaux, one of the few guys that has seen David Wells, and he had Charlie O'Brien coming up. First pitch right here, fastball, Joe, is one that you got to watch for. O'Brien loves to sit dead red all the time on that first pitch fastball.
Good point, and I think it's, see, if walking him doesn't really hurt you, because if you can get a ground ball, you're out of the inning. So Wells will have to make sure he keeps the ball down and stays out of the middle of the plate with that first fastball.
O'Brien with a single and a strikeout and 2 trips to the plate. Curveball. Let me just ask you, that dead red, is that a big red machine saying?
No, it's like, I mean, dead red is you're looking for nothing but a straight fastball. That's all you're looking for, a straight fastball.
I thought it was a Cincinnati thing.
Well, your dead red is a baseball term in a slide piece. A little slider.
Foul back of the plate, a ball and a strike. Charlie O'Brien with runners in scoring position this season. Just 9 out of 64.
Well, use that term, he hasn't been looking dead red enough. But it was a big red machine.
Kind of like lean green.
Yeah, right, yeah. Dead red. If you're a Reds player, look for it.
A ball and a strike. Too tight. 2-1.
I think the other question you have, if you're Davey Johnson, is how long do you go with Wells? Because he does appear to me that he's losing a little bit of his steam on his fastball. But how long do you go?
That last fastball, 82 miles an hour. 2-1 pitch. 2-2.
He chased the high fastball up and out of the strike zone, which helps Wells there. But you see Gullett, the pitching coach, he has to be concerned and thinking about, well, if I can get through this inning, maybe I'm okay. But he can't be thinking much past this inning with Wells.
Against the Los Angeles Dodgers in the first round of the National League playoffs. In that game, he went 6 1/3 innings on a yield of 6 hits and 1 run.
The problems Reds have, though, Greg, they cannot wait till he runs out of gas, because you're in a do-or-die situation, and that's a fact. You cannot afford to go down 3-0 in this 7-game series. So you have to make a decision of saying, hey, I can't wait till he runs out of gas. I've got to get him 2 pitches before he runs out of gas.
2-2 to O'Brien. Hit deep to left field. Gone.
Fastball is not really up. It looks like it's a strike, and Charlie O'Brien makes him pay a 3-run homer. Take another look at the pitch. Looks like a fastball right about the middle of the plate and about bell time.
Dead red.
Dead red. And he puts a real charge into it.
Javi Lopez, a 3-run homer, and another Atlanta Braves catcher rips a 3-run shot. Atlanta leads at 3-0.
I don't want to seem like I'm second guessing the manager or anything, but when you're in a 2-0 situation, again, you have to take the pitcher out 2 pitches before he gets hurt, not 2 pitches too late. And I think I'm not second guessing because I said it before he did it.
You were first guessing.
Yes, first guess.
Belliard with a foul ball to the right side. And a little bit of stirring now in the Cincinnati bullpen. Edman stays high, a ball and a strike. Xavier Hernandez starts to throw. Foul back. One and two.
I think you see even Belliard's taking a pretty big swing here at Wells these last 2 pitches.
1-2 pitch. Breaking ball towards short. Larkin deep. Got it. But the damage. Damage has been done. It's out number 2. And now Greg Maddux steps to the plate. And with 3 runs in his favor, you got to think that's more than enough for him to work with the rest of the night.
Well, I think you have to feel that the Braves are in charge now simply because the Reds did not get to Maddux early when he was vulnerable. Now, you know, he's throwing the ball pretty well again. I mean, he has bounced back. They did not take advantage of his early wildness. And for him, being wild was missing his spots by 6 or 8 inches. Now he's starting to hit his spots. So does not look good. That's why you, again, you know, in a 2-0 situation, you just could not let the Braves draw first blood.
Maddux goes fishing, but David Wells surrenders the 3-run homer to Charlie O'Brien. It's a 3-0 Braves lead, and we'll come back to Atlanta after these words from your local station.
Renegade soldiers have taken a lawyer hostage.
Tonight is our MCI proof positive replay with 2 on and 1 out. Charlie O'Brien puts a charge into a David Wells pitch and lines it over the wall in left field. The Atlanta Braves and Greg Maddux have a 3-0 lead as we start the 7th. It's our MCI proof positive replay. Maddux will face Santiago, Boone, and Branson here in the 7th inning. Toward third. Nice hop for Chipper Jones. 1 out.
Game. He has found his rhythm, and we talked about that the first 3 innings. He was struggling with his rhythm, missing his spots. Now he is hitting his spots.
Take a look at the change in Greg Maddux in the first 3 innings. 23 balls, 30 strikes, a total of 53 pitches. In the innings 4 through 6, he only threw 29 pitches, and only 8 of them balls. Paints the outside corner there.
There he goes again. I mean, it's amazing how all of a sudden he found his rhythm, and the Reds let him off the hook the first 3 innings, and now it's going to be tough for them. They're fighting an uphill battle. Because not only do you have to fight Maddox now, but you have to fight the Atlanta bullpen,
which has been outstanding in this series. 1-2. Swung at a bad pitch. Ball gets away at the plate, and Boone's going to make it to first.
Well, that's one way of getting on, and it really doesn't matter as long as you can get on. The Reds need base runners. I know Boone's upset with the strikeout, but at least he's on base. This is a breaking ball that bounces on the plate. Boone swings at it. Right on the plate, skids off of O'Brien and off of the umpire, and Boone's alive at first base, so it'll be a strikeout and a wild pitch.
Check it out. Your chicken and your feathers all in one at bat. Here's Jeff Branson. It's the first pitch, deep center field. On the run, Grissom makes the catch. And now they're going to challenge at second base, and the umpire out there, Randy Marsh, says no. What a running grab by Marquise Grissom.
Well, the ball took off like it was going to find the gap, but then it hung out there, and Grissom just ran it down. He actually got there pretty easily. Well, Brett Boone thought it was going to be, well, he does pass the bag, and he does retouch it, though. He retags it on the way back. If you pass second base, you have to retag it on your return to first base, and he did so.
Here's Lenny Harris. Lenny Harris pinch hitting for the pitcher David Wells, a .208 hitter during the regular season with 2 homers and 16 runs batted in. 1 for 1 as a pinch hitter in the postseason. Jeff Branson put a charge into that one.
Well, it looked like it was going to go farther than it did. It got out there and then it hung, and if I look at the flags now, the wind is actually blowing in from right field according to the flags on the top of the stadium, which is not always a true measure of the way the wind is blowing, but I do feel a breeze in my face. And the ball got out there and it hung. It looked, see, the flags are blowing in. It looked like it was going to be in the gap, and it just hung, and Grissom was able to run it down.
What that always is a true measure of how the wind is blowing up there.
At that level.
Swing and a miss. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Grissom went a long way for it, but you can see he's under control right there. About 5 steps before he caught it, he knew he was going to get there. And he was playing awfully shallow for Branson.
And was playing over in left center field, too.
But again, the ball hung. It did not just drive it out there. It hung out there.
2-2 pitch. High chopper. Maddox off the mound. It's foul ball.
Interesting thing about Maddox, he has only struck out 4 hitters, and 3 of those were strikeouts of Reggie Sanders, and Boone here in the 7th inning becomes his 4th strikeout victim.
Seattle still holding on to a 2-1 lead at Cleveland in the 8th inning. Here, the Braves on Charlie O'Brien's 3-run homer in the 6th lead at 3-0. Greg Maddux working on a 3-hit shutout. Go back to Greg Maddux on the mound on that last pitch.
Let's see how this pitch reacts. Look at the spin on that ball. And it really dived away. That's a tough pitch to handle. It's a pitch that Johnny Bench and I were talking about today before the game, wondering what that pitch actually is. Because it really explodes down and away from the left-hander and down and in on the right-hander. In fact, the Reds players were wondering what that pitch is.
Harris up the middle, base hit. Boone Boone makes the turn at second and goes on to third, and the Reds now with runners at first and third. So Harris does his job as the pinch hitter, and we go to the top of the order and Thomas Howard.
Well, Lenny Harris has been the lone bright spot for the Cincinnati Reds hitters, that is. I mean, he has come through with pinch hits a couple of times in this series.
Let's go back to Harris's at bat and take a look.
Now let's take a look at this pitch. It looks like he's gripping it like it's a changeup, but that's a lot of rotation for a changeup, and it explodes down and away. It's not like it's an off-speed pitch.
On the first pitch, up the middle, Lemke makes the play himself, and the Reds are gone in the seventh. They strand two more. Home half of the seventh coming up, 3-0 Atlanta. Davey Johnson, and what we've seen his hitters do a couple of times, Joe and Johnny Bench, is his players go after the first pitch against Greg Maddux for the third out of the inning.
Well, I would like John to answer that question. John was a great RBI man, and in this last situation, Howard was the tying run. John, what would you try to do in that situation?
Well, I'm going up there looking for fastball. In fact, the coaches have been telling the hitters, can't you tell some of these guys to swing at that first fastball? But Maddux is smart enough to know just to move something. They're so desperate to make contact right now that he's just putting it just out of the strike zone. They're getting themselves out.
Good point. That's exactly what happened with Howard.
Down the third base line, foul. The new pitcher, incidentally, is Xavier Hernandez.
Well, the pitch to Howard was just up and out of the strike zone, up and in. Branson, who was hitting with Boone at third base, did the same thing. First pitch up and in, and he grounded weakly back to Maddux. And as John said, yeah, you want to be aggressive with Maddux in the strike zone, but you have to have a zone where you're going after instead of just swinging at the first fastball you see wherever it is.
Yeah, the frustration has really grown for this ball club.
Yeah.
Offensively, they know they're not doing and they're not putting the runs on the board, so each guy that goes up there says, I'm the guy that's going to make the difference and get the runs in for us.
Reds now with 3 runs scored in 29 innings in this LCS. Xavier Hernandez making his first postseason appearance. 2 balls and a strike. Marquise Grissom is 1 out of 3. He'll be followed by Lemke and then Chipper Jones. Short right field. Sanders coming on for the out. Reggie Sanders will come to the plate in the top of the 8th inning with those strikeouts hanging over his head like a thunderstorm.
Well, he's already got the hat trick. But, you know, I think John made a very good point that, you know, you should observe, and that is that the Reds are maybe panicking a little bit now. And they are just, you know, they can see that they're in trouble, and they're just, I guess it's like a boxer. He's going to swing his way out of trouble instead of being patient and waiting for something to happen. They're just going to swing their way to a victory, and that's not happening with a guy like Maddux. And maybe he's the one guy that they did not need to face in this type of situation.
Base hit center field. Lemke's first hit of the night.
Lemke has been a pretty good hitter in that he doesn't try to do too much. Just pitches out away from him. He just goes right back through the middle with it. Doesn't try to pull it. Does not try to do too much with it. And that's why Lemke's a good player. He stays within his own range. He does not go out of his own limits. He knows what to do at the plate and also in the field.
Chipper Jones' wife, Karen. This one hit hard to left field. Ron Gant back to the wall, and he'll watch it go. his third playoff home run.
Fastball, middle of the plate and up. Belt tie, and he drills it. Middle of the plate, and he drills it to left field for a home run. That's the one good part that he has of playing in this ballpark. He is strong enough that he can hit it out in any direction. He doesn't have to pull it. He's going to be a big star. The Braves already think he is.
5-0 Atlanta lead. And with Mr. Maddox on the mound and the way the Atlanta bullpen has been performing, that's like shoveling dirt onto the Reds. Chipper Jones. Not bad for a rookie, huh? Including 3 home runs. McGriff to straightaway center field. Thomas Howard broke back and then comes in to make the catch for the second out. Here's David Justice. During the regular season, Atlanta against Cincinnati hit 23 home runs. The Reds hit 14 against the Braves. Hector Carrasco heating up in Cincinnati's bullpen. And I don't think even against this outstanding pitching staff the Atlanta Braves throw at you, I don't think anyone could have envisioned the power shortage that the Reds have suffered in this LCS.
So I agree with you. But the one thing to remember, every hitter in this Reds lineup, there is a way to pitch to him. I think, again, Larkin and Mars can make adjustments. And most of the other ones, they have weaknesses, and the Atlanta Braves pitching staff is able to get to those weaknesses. Not a lot of adjustments being made by anyone other than Larkin and Mars.
3 balls and a strike. Looking ahead to the Cincinnati 8th, Greg Maddux will face Barry Larkin, Ron Gant, and Reggie Sanders. Atlanta owner Ted Turner and wife Jane. Line to center. Thomas Howard on the run. Can't come up with it. And for the second straight time, Howard broke back on the ball before coming in.
Exactly. He is not getting a good jump on the ball. He didn't get a good jump on the balls last game in Cincinnati. He got a poor jump on this one, and he can't get there in time. He got a poor jump on the previous one, but he just can't quite get there, and the ball bounces away, and Justice has a single.
So with a man at first and 2 out now, here is Mike Devereaux. Sixth man that Xavier Hernandez has faced here in the 7th inning. Grissom began with a fly ball to right. Lemke's single. Chipper Jones homered to the opposite field. After McGriff flied out to center, Devereaux singled to center, and here comes Davey Johnson. Maybe that last pitch did it for him. Hector Carrasco will come on from the bullpen with a 1-0 count to Mike Devereaux, and we'll be back. There's no quit in the Seattle Mariners. It's also important to point out there's no quit in the Cleveland Indians.
You're right. And we hope there's no quit in the Cincinnati Reds.
Hector Carrasco has come on. There is a relaxed Atlanta dugout. Carrasco in 64 games this year, 2-7. An ERA of above 4, and he faces Devereaux with a 1-0 count on it. Devereaux swinging on the first pitch, and the count is even to a ball and a strike.
Carrasco has a real good fastball and also a splitter. He has an overpowering fastball.
Carrasco has been prone to throwing the wild pitch. Number 2 in the National League, 15 of them. That's outside. 2 balls and a strike.
We welcome those of you watching Atlanta, Cincinnati. Bob Costas, Bob Uecker at Jacobs Field in Cleveland. Randy Johnson had a 2-0 lead. The Indians have come back on him. A run in the 4th and a run here in the 8th on a 2-base error in right field by Jay Buhner and an RBI single by that man Kenny Lofton, who then proceeded to steal second. Now the hitter is Carlos Baerga.
I'll tell you, I questioned that last play by Vizquel, Bob. 1 out, 8th inning, and you got a guy like Lofton at second. And again, in trying to bunt, I think you got to take a whack and try to knock him in. I really do. I mean, Vizquel's had a heck of a year. He's done well offensively. He's done everything you could ask for defensively. I think you got to go. You got to try to hit the ball. You got to try and knock in the run, man. That's a big run.
And bunting for the hit, obviously, not the sacrifice with 1 out.
Yep.
Tried it twice, as a matter of fact.
I think you got to go, man. I really do. I think you got to try and knock him in. You can't put all the heat on Baerga.
And Johnson steps off.
Baerga singled back in the 4th and 1 for 3. There's Lofton out at second.
While we have a chance, Wilson going to the mound to talk to Johnson. For those of you who are watching the Braves and the Reds, here's the way this inning is developed. With 1 out, Alvaro Espinosa skies one to right. Buhner thinks he's got it lined up, and then the ball sails on him just off the edge of his glove for what was ruled a 2-base error. Then Wayne Kirby ran for Espinosa at second, and Lofton lined a single past the diving Blowers at third base and into left field. Kirby scored easily to tie the game. After Lofton stole second with 1 out, Vizquel tried to bunt and fouled out. Now it's Baerga. The 1-0 pitch from Johnson. Ground ball to Soho. A long throw is in time. On to the 9th at Jacobs Field. Mariners 2, Indians 2.
We've played 7 complete here in Atlanta. The Braves, 5 runs, 12 hits, and 1 error. The Reds, no runs, 4 hits, and no errors as Hector Carrasco came on to get the final out of the inning. Charlie O'Brien popping out to second base, and Davey Johnson and Don Gullett. In fact, that entire Reds team, Joe, now really looking at an uphill climb with 2 innings to play, 6 outs to go against Greg Maddux.
Well, the Reds are capable of coming back because you have to have power to be able to do that.
We'll take a time out here and come back for the start of the 8th in just a moment.
Let me get.
As we come back for the start of the 8th inning, Barry Larkin lifts a fly down the right field line. Justice in foul territory with the catch. Gets a little bit scary when you don't know just where that wall is.
That's right. Nice play there by Justice Watson. Now he will jump, so that he's trying to jump into that pad, and if he hits anything, so he finds the pad. Just a nice play there. He knows about where the wall is, but he makes a good play out of it.
I know it's around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Good job by David Justice. Here's Ron Gant, deep in the hole and a base hit to left field. So Gant with only his 3rd hit of the league championship series. And here is Reggie Sanders. Reggie Sanders, 17 strikeouts in a postseason. In just 25 ABs. Sanders has gone down swinging 3 times in 3 at-bats tonight.
He had 1 good at-bat his second time up, which it looked like it was something to build on, but fell right back in his 3rd at-bat.
There's a pitch he's been chasing by Maddux all night that he stayed away from.
And anyone that doesn't think that Maddux does not know what he's doing out there, I mean, everything he throws, Sanders, is high or way low.
1-1.
And the one thing to remember, Sanders has fouled off a lot of pitches. He is just not putting the ball in play. Alejandro Pena up and throwing in the bullpen.
perception of Maddox has at least one base hit tonight. Chopper to short. Belliard can't make a play, and there's an infield hit.
And that's the second infield hit that Sanders has in this series. Both of his hits have been infield hits.
At this stage of the game, Reggie will take anything he can get.
Well, the Reds will too. They need base runners. They're down 5 runs. They need base runners. You can't get it back all at once. So, hey, this is the 8th inning. You get a couple here and maybe make a last shot at him in the 9th. So you have to try to put something on the board right here, though.
Hal Morris came in, a career .405 hitter against Greg Maddux. He is 0 for 3 tonight with a liner to short, a grounder to second, and a fly ball to left.
And he really hasn't hit the ball well at all. He has not had a lot of good swings at Maddux in this game. Same pattern, change up away, hard stuff in.
What you're saying, Joe, is it's not really difficult to think along with Greg Maddux.
No, it isn't. But the difference is, Greg, he throws you on the same plane. He'll throw you a changeup. It starts like a fastball, looks like a fastball, looks like a fastball till it gets there, and then it drops. And that's the problem you have with it. And even with Glavine, they all have the changeup, and they throw it from the same release point, the same plane that they throw the fastball. And that keeps you off balance. That's what's difficult about it. And he does not give you anything in the middle of the plate. Neither he nor Glavine.
Which I hate when a pitcher does that.
Yes.
A ball and a strike to Hal Morris.
And truthfully, the only pitcher on their staff of the starters who will work you in the middle of the plate is Smoltz, because he just overpowers you. He has such hard breaking stuff, and his ball moves so much. He doesn't have to hit the edges as much as Glavine and Maddux do. I mean, they just stay on the corner, stay out of the middle of the plate, and they keep you off balance. Remember, early in the 3rd inning, he had 40 pitches, so he's gone the rest of the way with 66 pitches. Not too bad.
Hit hard, base hit, right field. Gant waved around third. He'll score the first run of the night for the Reds, and Cincinnati with runners at first and third and 1 out.
Well, this could be what the Reds had hoped for before, that Maddux would run out of gas, but we're in the 8th inning before he runs out of gas. See, this is a fastball. He tried to go back in, change up the way fastball's in, and he got that one in. He didn't get quite in as far as he wanted for a base hit. And Gant comes in to score the first run for the Reds.
And Bobby Cox makes his way to the mound. And already the crowd has begun to applaud Greg Maddux. I don't think Bobby's made the decision to remove him yet.
Well, when you have a pitcher of Maddox's status, you go out and you ask him how he feels. I mean, he will usually tell you the truth. At least you think you do. You have to have a certain amount of confidence in him knowing when he's done, and he'll let you know. So that's why Bobby went out and asked him. Maddux says, I'm not done. So Bobby will give him at least one more hitter.
That hitter for the moment is Benito Santiago. Cleveland trying to win it in the bottom of the 9th. Benito Santiago with 3 career home runs off Greg Maddux. Fouls the first pitch back.
And I tell you what, he got the pitch he wanted right there. Fastball, bell tie, middle of the plate, and he fouled it back. It just seems that Maddux is able to keep you off balance enough so that when he does make a mistake, you foul it back. You don't hit it over the wall.
Atlanta 5, Cincinnati 1, top of the 8th inning. Sky high, back to third. Belliard makes the call and makes the catch.
And the Reds leave another runner at third with less than 2 outs. People may not have understood what I said earlier. For the Reds to be up 2-0 instead of down 0-2, all they had to do was be able to put the ball in play. Hit fly balls to the outfield, hit a couple of ground balls, and they would have won the first 2 ball games. They were not able to do that. They instead struck out, in those situations or hit into double plays in game 1. And they're doing it again here tonight. They're just not putting the ball in play properly.
Brett Boone, 1 out of 3 tonight. A base hit back in the 4th inning to center field, went all the way to 3rd on what was ruled a 2-base error on Marquise Grissom and was stranded there. That misses outside. 2 balls and no strikes. Barry Larkin looking on from the dugout. 2-0 pitch. Foul. Back of the plate. And it'll reach the seats.
Another example of what Johnny was talking about earlier. He gets behind 2-0. He's going to throw the fastball. Boone knows he's going to throw it. So he throws it just up and out of the strike zone. Boone swings at it anyway and fouls it back. I believe in order to handle Maddox consistently, you just have to be a smart hitter. You have to be smart enough to know your strengths and your weaknesses. Stay away from the pitches that he gets into your weakness, meaning if he throws it up and out of the strike zone, you have to lay off of those pitches.
2-1.
And again, he throws it up there. See, he knows you're going to swing, so he just keeps throwing it up there.
And now the Atlanta fans to their feet.
He's throwing 2 high fastballs. He struck him out with a breaking ball in the dirt. So he's got 2 ways to go now, either the high fastball or the breaking ball away.
Hard, but right at Belliard who gets the force at second, and the Reds are gone in the 8th. They score 1. They still trail by 4 as we move to the home half of the 8th inning. Greg Maddux come to the plate. He's finished for the night. Bobby Cox and Greg Maddux talking. And Joe, as you said, the telltale sign was they shook his hand in the dugout.
Yeah, right there. When they shake your hand like that, that means it's over.
Have a nice night.
Yeah, you did well, kid, but that's enough for tonight.
114 pitches for Maddux on the night.
And if you're Bobby Cox, you're thinking, well, I'm going to have this guy for a few more starts this year, and if I save some pitches on his arm now, it'll be that much stronger later on.
Belliard goes after the first offer. Belliard, 1 out of 3 tonight. A base hit back in the 2nd inning. Ryan Klesko will be the pinch hitter for Maddux. Foul ball. 0-2.
It's interesting when we talked to Cox earlier, he said that if the Braves won tonight, he would go with Steve Avery tomorrow. If they did not, he would come back with game 1 starter Glavine. Now with a 3-0 lead, that's what he's thinking, that now I can set my rotation for the next series. I can make sure I give these guys proper rest.
Swing and a miss.
And they will be ready for the next series. Although in baseball, you never know, because there have been people who counted other teams out and they come back to win, although obviously a very difficult task for the Reds at this point.
So Ryan Klesko steps to the plate. Klesko hit .310 during the regular season, 23 homers, 70 runs batted in. A strong hitter.
And he's also the reason the Braves are wondering whether they will sign McGriff. Klesko can play first base, and they're wondering if they're going to have enough money to sign McGriff and Grissom and some of the other players. So could be a situation where McGriff would be the odd man out and Klesko moves to first base.
That's called strike. There's Fred McGriff. Talking to Stan Kasten before the game down on the field, and he says the priority is to sign and have everybody back next year, but he did point out we do have a first baseman playing in left field. That was Klesko.
Well, I don't know if that's to keep McGriff's price down a little bit, because I'm sure McGriff wants to stay, but I would caution a lot of people to remember that this was not a that good a team before McGriff came here. Since he has been here, they have been on top and have been a good ball club.
Swing and a miss.
He's the guy that solidifies the middle of that lineup.
So Klesko is out. Stan Kasten quick to point out that John Shorholz, the GM of the Atlanta Braves, and there he is, will make those decisions. But McGriff arrives here in Atlanta in midsummer of '93, and shortly after his arrival, well, from there to the rest of the end of the season, the Braves went 51-17. And if the Braves don't want to meet his price, I would wager that there are a few baseball teams around the country who will.
No doubt. If I was to start a team tomorrow, he could play for me. He's a gamer. And he kind of reminds me a little bit, kind of reminds me a little bit of the Tony Perez situation. Tony Perez was traded from the Reds in that same type of scenario, thinking that they had someone to replace him. But they forgot you don't replace a lot of things that one guy brings to the clubhouse. McGriff brings a lot to this ball club, the way he goes about his job, the way he performed. And Perez was the same way with the Reds, and that's not a knock on anyone that replaced him thereafter. It's just the fact that there's only one Tony Perez that I've ever seen.
0-2 pitch. Fouled it back.
And I might add one Johnny Bench, one Pete Rose, one George Foster. I was fortunate enough to play with a lot of great players who all brought something to the dance. And when you take one of those people out of the mix, it does hurt the rest of them.
0-2 misses, a ball and 2 strikes. What you're saying is it disrupts the chemistry.
Exactly. Before he got here, they were always struggling. Who was going to hit in the middle of the lineup? Justice didn't believe he was a fourth-place hitter. And to make that point, if he's not in the 4th slot next year, who would hit 4th for the Braves?
Grissom up high. Well, as it remains to be seen, Ryan Klesko is still young, and although he's had a terrific season, if he can eventually be a cleanup hitter.
That's a good point. I mean, but you already have one there. I mean, there's what's the old saying? Potential means that you haven't attained it yet, your status yet. You don't know how good the guy's going to be.
Foul ball.
When you put McGriff in the lineup, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, or close to 100. Every year you pencil him in the lineup. So that's what you're taking out of the lineup.
Carrasco looking to strike out the side here in the 8th inning. 2-2 count on Grissom. Ball 3.
And remember, the Braves are a team that lives on power and pitching. They're not a team that lives on speed or an abundance of 300 hitters. They're a team that is built around pitching and power.
Full count pitch now to Grissom. Got him swinging, so Carrasco does strike out the side. Atlanta's gone in the 8th. The 5 years old. On the first pitch, Branson lines one deep to right field, off the wall. Bounces past Justice. Branson into second with a double.
See the difference there in the ball that he hit his last time up when McGriff was able to run it down.
So now Eddie Taubensee will hit for Hector Carrasco. And with one on, let's check in with Bob Costas in Cleveland.
Welcome again to those of you watching the Braves and Reds. Back at Jacobs Field, bottom of the 9th. The Indians, with 2 men on and 1 out, a hit, batter, and a walk, have given them a chance to win the game. The rookie Herbert Perry, 0 for 2 with a walk, facing Norm Charlton, who relieved Randy Johnson at the start of this inning. And a called strike 1. Perry hit .315 for the year with 3 home runs. Each team has an unearned run tonight.
Many in this crowd of 43,000 plus on their feet here in the Indian Ninth.
He's quickly ahead of Perry, 0-2. Sandy Alomar Jr. on deck. And he got him swinging with the splitter.
Well, he threw him 3, 2 for strikes, call strikes, and then comes with that nasty splitter down low. Perry chases. Here it is one more time. There's a nasty splitter by Charlton to get the strikeout and a big one. Big strikeout for Charlton. They're all big in this game. It's up to the bullpens now.
Sandy Alomar Jr. rolls one to third. Flowers has it across the diamond and on to the 10th. The game in the hands of Mesa if they let him work another inning. And Charlton.
Back at Fulton County Stadium, 3 balls and no strikes. The count on Thomas Howard, leadoff hitter for the Reds. Reds with a runner at third and 1 out here in the 9th inning, trailing 5-1. That is Branson at third. He doubled, moved to third on the Taubensee ground out. There's a strike, 3 balls and a strike. Branson, the first leadoff man to reach base for the Reds tonight. Tells you a little about their troubles tonight. 3-1 to Howard. 3-2. The Reds in danger of going down 3 games to 0. And would turn to their Game 1 starter, Pete Shorrock, tomorrow. Steve Avery would go for the Braves to try to finish the Reds off in a 4-game sweep. Foul ball. Understood the loose nature of the Reds coming in here tonight, Joe. I would expect to be a completely different team down 3-0 tomorrow.
Well, you would think so, but everyone reacts differently to pressure. And we'll have to see how the Reds react.
Since this National League Championship Series was changed to a best-of-7 in 1985, the Braves would become the first team ever to take a 3-0 lead in National League play. 3-2 pitch. Hit to center field. Grissom makes the catch. The sacrifice fly gets the runner home. It's 5-2. But the